Have you ever heard the phrase that a tree without roots is just a piece of wood? Hi, I'm Alan Smith and welcome to the show. Today we're going to dig a little deeper into what I consider one of the most important aspects of plants, and for that matter us, our roots. Roots, as you know, are the conduit by which a plant takes in the world around it. Roots form the foundation from which a plant grows, making it weak or strong. Without roots, life cannot be sustained. Sometimes the best way to grow your roots is to explore new ones. Take Miss Big Fig, for example. Sometimes the best way to explore your roots is just to create some new ones, like using shoots from our grand old Miss Big Fig at the farm to create more fig trees. If you know me, you know I'm interested in conserving and preserving things. Well, take for instance this activity that I'm underway with today. It's all about perpetuating Miss Big Fig, a very old Celeste fig, probably close to 100 years old. Now, you can see the big old trunks in here, and after a while they begin to decay, and once they begin to decay, we remove them. But then what happens is you get all these young shoots. Here's where the opportunity comes along. By taking these shoots and clipping them in late winter, I can root each one of these and create a new Miss Big Fig. And what I want to do is I want to cut one of these low stems that's close to the ground here and just show you what I mean, because they're already putting out what are called little aerial roots. If you look closely here, you can see, look at those little roots coming out on the side. Now this was a stem that was very close to the ground. The potential for these roots lies all along the stem. So all of these stems can produce new fig plants. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these in lengths of about 10 inches, and we're going to stick them in a moist, very loose soil. And in about 6 weeks, you'll see lots of little roots coming out of here. Now, there are a few things I want you to keep in mind if you decide to do this at home. Number one, you want to create a container and fill it with a moist soil. The second thing you want to do is you want to use a rooting powder or rooting hormone or rooting compound. You just dip the ends of the stems in it and then put them into the ground. It's that easy. And the third thing is place your container where you're rooting your figs in a place that's shady, not in direct sun, because too much sunlight will stress them out. And before long, you'll have more fig plants than you can count. Apple trees are a real joy to have around, but they can be a little tricky to grow. Luckily, my friend Dr. Arlie Powell stopped by to give us some tips on how to get the young trees positioned just right for success in the orchard. Arlie, I can't tell you how excited I am that you're here and you brought the trees.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to be planting some apples and pears.
Yes, we are, and we've got some excellent examples right here of what you want to plant. This is a 2-year tree. We also have some 1-year trees. These are feathered out, as we call it, with branches. That's ideal.
So Arlie, the difference between this tree and that tree, the 1-year-old and this is a 2-year-old, is just 1 year, and look how it's grown.
1 year makes a big difference.
It does. These things will double in size each year, essentially.
And this one, after it grows this season, is going to be producing apples for you. If they're on a dwarf or semi-dwarfing rootstock, which gives you a smaller size tree, a lot easier for gardeners to manage.
Yeah.
You're looking at anywhere from 50 to 200 pounds per tree.
Jason, I'm so excited about getting this orchard replanted, and we're starting here with this young Gala apple.
Absolutely.
So what do you recommend as an orchardist?
I have a soil similar to you. I've got a pretty heavy clay soil, which doesn't drain terribly well. And so I like the fact that you've got this brilliant compost that we can mix in. Depth of planting is a second point. I'm afraid we've been guilty too often of planting too deep.
You know, planting them too deeply is a problem. I've killed a lot of trees that way. And you have to allow for settling. Now what we've done here is we took the soil out of the hole, but we mixed 50-50 our homemade compost and the existing soil.
And at this point, I usually come in and I can use the opposite side of the shovel and kind of tamp down around it, and we'll come back After tamping this, add some more soil, and then we can water it in deeply.
Yeah, the water will really help get those air pockets out. I want to always maintain this level from the top of the pot.
Yes.
I don't want to get any soil up there. We're going to mulch it later just to help keep moisture in around the little tree. Now, when do you fertilize, Jason? What's your technique?
Once the tree is bearing fruit, mid-season. But with a young tree like this, you're really wanting to make growth.
Yeah, I'm not trying to produce any fruit on this little guy.
So we can fertilize a little bit heavier. So we'll look at going in once a month. Alan, do you have rabbits or deer?
We do, and you know, that's why I got this cage where we could protect the little guy.
You wonder if they know that you're planting.
I think they're watching right now. So I just connect these little tines. I just close the little tines like that.
And then that whole trunk and stem is protected.
Yeah. Of course, the next thing I want to do is I want to stabilize this. That's why I have these posts out here, because I don't want this tree to knock around. I want it to root in, and by having this tube, I like this clear plastic tube, we can put it here on the side, and that'll keep this little guy from getting knocked around.
I like that.
That's all you need there.
Yeah, I like that.
So now, one last thing. What I would tend to do, Jason, is I would bring this soil on around and kind of create a little bit of a mound or a berm.
Absolutely, yes.
And as the water comes down naturally, it would kind of puddle around the tree and I could capture water. And in the summer, that would be good because we've got irrigation out here, but I like catching that natural rainwater.
I agree. You know as well as I do, those trees know the difference between rainwater and hose water. And because you're on a slope, I like your idea of berming it up higher
on this side, right, to catch it, and then put some mulch around it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Well, I think we're off to a good start with these trees.
I do too.
I really appreciate your help.
It's my pleasure.
Always great to have you here.
Thank you, Alan.
As a Southern boy, there are certain things that my garden would feel incomplete without. Tomatoes, okra, certainly, peppers, and of course, collard greens. Can you guess the name of this plant here in the vegetable garden? That's a little clue. Well, it's actually one of my favorite greens, but oddly, we're talking about the flowers. These are bulldog collards. And let me tell you, you can tell I'm from the South, and that means I love collard greens. This particular variety of collard is delicious and a vigorous grower. If you look at the big leaves they produce, they have a white vein through them. These things have such wonderful flavor just sauteed. I even use them in slaws and salads, and you can cook them the old-fashioned way with a little bit of ham in there. That's pretty good too. What I love about bulldog is that it's a real bulldog in the garden. It can take cold temperatures. So this block of collards I ate on all through the late fall, through the winter and early spring. And now I've allowed the plants to bolt, hence all of these beautiful flowers. But the eating doesn't stop with the leaves. These buds and flowers are delicious and beautiful on salads. And if you look closely, you'll find that my honeybees are enjoying them as well. So the way I see it, the bulldog collard fits into the ecosystem of my organic vegetable garden. If you haven't tried these collards, you need to give them a try. Like my dad used to say, man, they taste so good they'd make a bulldog break his chain. Now, who doesn't love to eat? It's been a pastime of mankind for a long time. Now, when you think about food, well, it has to be preserved, and the more skillful you are at it, well, the more you have to eat. And modern technology has made preserving food easier than ever. You can easily freeze fruits like these luscious, plump little blackberries in bulk to keep on hand year-round. Simply lay out your fruit on a cookie sheet, place it in your freezer until they're frozen solid, then transfer them into bags for long-term storage. While freezing food is a relatively modern way of preserving it, there have been some other things that we've done in the past that are more conventional, like canning. Canning is a time-honored way to preserve fruits and vegetables, and all it requires is heat and a glass jar. Not to mention, it makes it so easy to share the bounty with others. After all, who doesn't enjoy sharing a can of their very own freshly made pickled peaches? Yeah, right? Of course, there's drying. Drying's been around a long time. It's great for herbs and other things like fruits. You can dry herbs by hanging them outside in the sun. Once dried, they can be crushed up and stored for use as seasoning. These are just a few ways of preserving food that I enjoy. What I love about it is you can take the bounty of the garden and spread it across the entire year. If you're one of those people like me who enjoy spending time outdoors, you've probably learned that gardening is, well, very therapeutic. That phrase is used a lot, but it really is, I think, stimulating for the mind, good for the soul. But if you don't have the right tools and approach it, it can be a little hard on the body. One of the things I constantly have to remind myself of is when I go into the garden, I need to go in with the tools that I need to get the job done. Now, for instance here, I'm making sure that all my blackberries are lining up on this nice wire that I've got here. In order to do that and to avoid all these thorns these gloves come in mighty handy. Also, it's worth noting that when I am working with things like this that'll cause cuts or abrasions or irritations from plants, wearing a long sleeve shirt can also help. And then there's safety goggles and sturdy shoes, which I consider a must, especially when you're using heavy equipment. And make it easy on your bones and muscles. If you have arthritis or get sore easily, use tools that are easy to grasp and fit your ability. I also like to have a knee pad or a seat if I'm going to be working down low for long periods of time. Also, combat bugs and the chance of skin cancer by wearing bug spray and sunscreen. And of course, remember to stay hydrated, especially when spending extended time outdoors in the high heat. After all, it's fun to grow things, but when you're out there in the garden, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. After all, you can come up with solutions like this that make it easy. It's child's play, right? I just love wisteria, don't you? It's one of my favorite spring blooming plants. But you know, I often get the question, why doesn't my wisteria bloom? Well, this could be for several reasons. Let's just go through them. First of all, a wisteria has to be of a certain age to bloom. So if you've just got a kiddo that's only a year or two old, don't expect much from it. The older they get, the better they perform. The other thing to keep in mind is wisteria love full sun. If you want lots of blooms, you need to make sure it's catching some rays. That's so important. The third thing to keep in mind is feeding wisteria. Think about all those blooms they produce. That takes a lot of energy. So you want to make sure that they're fed a high phosphorus fertilizer. What that means is if you're looking at a box of fertilizer, it's the middle number that's phosphorus. That needs to be high. And you want to fertilize these guys just as soon as they finish flowering in the spring, and it doesn't hurt to hit them again later in the summer. So they store up plenty of energy to give you one heck of a bloom in the spring. Okay, so let's say you've tried all of those things and your wisteria still isn't blooming. There's one other thing you can try. It's a kind of shock therapy. What you do is you take a heavy spade like this, and what you're going to do is you're going to root prune it. You're going to cut some of the roots, come out about 3 to 4 feet from the source of the vine, and then just take a shovel and drive it into the ground. You want to cut those roots. You just want to create an unbroken line. You don't want to cut all of the roots. You want to shock this thing into thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. It starts to stress and goes, I need to reproduce, and then it produces flowers for you. Now, as far as these wisteria go, I've never had any problem with them blooming. This is Japanese wisteria, or Wisteria floribunda, and they always produce huge numbers of gorgeous blooms every spring. It's even fun to set up small dinner parties under these trees when they flower. Okay, why don't we head to Dallas and see a Chinese wisteria? Jack, this is such an amazing experience walking through this.
It is really something to behold. I don't think I've seen anything like this anywhere. I've seen man-made structures supporting wisteria, but never trees like this.
It's like a fantasy. It's almost like something out of a Harry Potter movie, walking through and all these blooms hanging around you.
Yeah, it's very asymmetrical. It's almost like a roller coaster of smells.
Yeah, the aroma is fantastic, and the breeze through here, it's really quite a magical place. Now this is the purple Chinese wisteria.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And parts of this is 45 years old. It's been here for a long time.
Well, one of the beautiful things about it is the sense of mystery that you've created here. It's very much an adventure to walk through, because one path you can't see the end, and you wind around and you stumble upon these little surprises, like seeing a pool of water or another vista across the pond. It really is an interesting garden room. It's really its own room, isn't it?
It is its own room, and it houses many different animals. We've come across a few different things around here that have surprised us.
You know, a lot of people love wisteria, but I think they're a little afraid of it because it can get out of hand. But they do take pruning very well.
They do take pruning well. I don't think you could kill it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So there really is no wrong way to do it. You certainly don't want to prune it when it's blooming. It's just too beautiful for that.
Jack, thank you again. This is just a wonderful experience. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
When it comes to gardening, one of the most stressful things that I think gardeners face is knowing what and when to prune. And there's no reason to put unnecessary restrictions on yourself in trying to determine this. It's actually easier than you think. You may have heard the old adage or the myth that you should only prune in months of the year that contain the letter R. It's been circulating around for, well, decades if not centuries. Basically, it's implying that you shouldn't prune in the summer months, so May through August. This stems from the idea that pruning in the heat and sun can damage your plants. Well, the truth is, what you want to think about is whether or not that plant blooms on old wood or new wood. Let me give you an example. This is Spirea, one of the most beautiful plants I have in this garden in the spring. Just a few weeks ago, it was covered in white flowers. You can see that it bloomed on old wood, wood from the previous season. This stem was produced last year. The flower buds were set, and then they opened this spring. So now is the time I would want to prune this particular plant. So if I wanted to go through here and shape it in any way, this would be the time to do it. Then it would continue to grow through the summer, it would set buds, and then bloom again in the spring. Now, for things that bloom on new wood, those should be pruned in the really early spring, if not late winter, because that's going to induce new growth, and at the end of that new growth is going to be that flower. No matter the shrub, the thing to always remember is the rule of the 3 Ds. If the limb is diseased, damaged, or dead, remove it any time of the year. And if you have any question about whether you ought to be pruning a shrub at a particular time, you're not really sure, just set your pruners down and walk away. So often we don't know what actually goes into the products that we put on or in our bodies. So when it comes to something like lip gloss, why not make your own at home?
Can you believe a man invented lip gloss? An inventor by the name of Max Factor created this product in the 1930s for the movie industry. It was developed specifically for actresses starring in black and white film. So who's ready to be a star? With your very own organic lip gloss. To make this lip gloss, what you need is a small mason jar and a hot water bath simmering in a small saucepan on the stove. Then in the mason jar, you're gonna put 2 teaspoons of beeswax pastilles, or you can take a grated block of beeswax and do it that way. Then you're gonna add 1 teaspoon of shea butter, 3 teaspoons of coconut oil. Then from there, I always like to add a little bit of scent. So this time I used some peppermint essential oil, but you could also use lavender or orange blossom is wonderful, patchouli. It's your chance to be creative. Sometimes I like to do a little bit of everything and have a whole variety of lip gloss. So then from there, you're gonna put that mason jar into the hot water bath and let it simmer slowly until it all melts. So once it's melted, we're gonna remove it from the heat. Now be careful, make sure you use something to remove it with so you don't burn your hands. Then take it and put it on your cutting board and use a funnel. Place that funnel in one of your lip balm tubes and then slowly pour in that liquid. Make sure you get all the way to the top and then let them cool. They're gonna cool really quickly. After your lip balm is cooled and set, it's ready to use. So now go ahead and try it and make every day a red carpet affair.
Getting back to your roots can take many forms. Planting a garden, doing something the old-fashioned way, just reflecting on the past. So the next time you're feeling a little nostalgic or old school, let the past inspire you to get creative and do something new. You'll find you really enjoyed it. Until next time, I'm Alan Smith. Do you think it's a single plant or is it multiplied since then?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure at one time it was probably planted in several areas, but
yeah,
it's taken over this area.
It is amazing. And I love how you all have carved a path through and under this, and it's supported by these really large cedar trees.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. It's hard to keep a path clear.
Well, it grows with abandon every day, doesn't it?
It certainly does.